There's a storm across the valley. The clouds are rolling in. The afternoon is heavy on your shoulders. There's a truck out on the 4-lane, a mile or more away. The whining of his wheels just makes it colder.
Welcome to Community Forum. I'm Priscilla, Almquist-Olsen, your host, and today is Friday, December 16th, 2022. And this is going to be one of my very favorite shows because I am welcoming today a good friend, but a magnificent artist who has won recently she's becoming number one in the entire nation. I'm telling you, in the entire nation for the Pastel Society, and the competition took place in New Hampshire. Allison Krajcik, artist extraordinaire.
Thank you.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you, Priscilla. It's so good to be here and be working with you. You're fun.
Good. Yeah. Well, we've done some shows before, but this one is very, very special, I think, because here you have one out of all the people in the entire country who submitted examples of their art. You're number one. It must be quite an extraordinary honor and
shocking. And the funny part about it was I had pulled this off my easel and put it back on and pulled it off and played with it, and then finally I was entering 2 other pieces, and I said, well, I'll throw this one in too, because that's almost always how it happens. You know,
right?
you just, and it's subjective. It's all of art is subjective. So I can't give this any more credit than the ones that get rejected, or it's just you must do, be motivated by your own interests and keep painting. But who knows who's going to love it or hate it?
And here we have the star of the show. And tell me what the title is.
The title is Time to Go. And oftentimes when you title a painting and it's right on, I fuss with words, and some of them can be really difficult, and oftentimes the ones that are difficult to name are the ones that I've lost my focus on. And so this is kind of rolling around in my head as I'm painting it, and there's a little story that goes behind why I chose milkweed. There's an environmental story, but finally it went, it's time to go. It's time for the seeds to go. And so sometimes those titles will come in and they'll be like, that's it, that's the one. But the story is, my mother was British, and she was an avid perennial gardener. And I had a perennial garden and still do. The only things that survive in my garden now are the hardy ones, because I'm not out there a whole lot. But one of the things that I've kind of, as we all are looking at our environment and what we thought were weeds and things like that, and so this is my homage to the milkweed, because for years, we're pulling it out of our gardens because, well, they're not attractive and they're not pretty and they're not perennials. Well, they are, but they're considered a weed. And so I was feeling badly that I had treated and thought of this poor thing, which is really a lifeline for butterflies.
Exactly.
And, you see them in the fields of Borderland. This is one from the fields of Borderland. And they're just, if you really watch their transformation, they're these big leafy things, and then they get this dome of sort of a burgundy, dusty burgundy. And then the seed pods, these seed pods look like pickles. They've got the bumps and the ridges of like a gherkin pickle, and they turn like a limey yellow, and then as they ripen, they harden and they dry out, and that's when they crack. And you'll see they're kind of old and dried and withered, but that's the best part, because the contrast between that outside pod and that beautiful silk inside, and the way the seeds are nested, they're magnificent. They're just a work of creation that you can't, you know, inside there's another, sort of like a tongue that separates the seeds. But when the seeds are packed, because I used to crack these open as a kid. Anybody that played in fields cracked them open, and you could feel the silk on your hand, and you'd let them go, and the wind would take them, and they'd fly. But never would you have them in your perennial garden.
No.
So I was feeling badly about them, and I thought, you know, they really are a beautiful thing, and that's where it came from. So when he chose it as on my Instagram is a video of him the night of the opening, and he
Who's that?
Alan Picard, the judge. He's a very well-known New England pastelist. He's actually a nationally known artist, but he did a beautiful description of how this impacted him as he looked at it and why he chose it as best of show.
Yes,
It's
and
like
may I read it now?
Yes, you may.
Okay. And this is by Alain Picard, or Picard, without pronouncing the G, I believe, in French. And he's writing about Time to Go, which is the title of our wonderful pastel painting here. Great art makes us feel strongly. This painting aches with feelings of coming to the end of something. I love the way the stalks of these dying flowers rise into the picture frame, the picture plane, framed by airy negative space. Krajcik, that's our guest today, has created a grand and powerful image. The warm golds and pale whites against rich blue gradations of sky keep the palette focused and the mood poignant. The wispy edges and textural elements are beautifully described to bring depth, intimacy, and interest to this grouping. A cluster of terrestrial shapes, like an endangered species, release their petals in a final voyage onward. What an accomplishment to imbue the work with such emotion. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, he knocked my socks off. You know, it's like he read my mind, because I really did feel so badly about them.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it's just a thought. You see them, I walk in Borderland all the time, I paint in Borderland all the time, and you walk by these things, and they're also in the front, a lot of them are in the front field at sheep pasture near Main Street.
Oh.
And they're just curious little things. But yeah, I felt bad about the butterflies. And so now you're seeing them. I know there's a big field between the farmhouse and the mansion on that back road at Borderland, and there's a huge field of them that they don't mow down or, you know, hay. So they're able to really get established, and it's really taking over. It's kind of a middle field. It's kind of dark, and there's a ton of them in there. But they're really interesting to look at.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
And your description was quite
He was
informative.
lovely. He was
But I just love the way there's so much movement in the photo. And how do you do that?
So the paper is toned. I tone it with pastel, so I'll take, you know, I like working with a warm underneath and cools on top. That's just kind of always been how I've approached painting, whether it's oil or pastel. And so it's a sanded paper. It's a UArt paper, and there's different grits. So I tone it with like this burnt umber sort of color, and you hit it with alcohol, rubbing out 70% alcohol, and it just blurs it, and you know, and so that's the underpainting. And then, you know, I'll draw with like a new pastel, which is kind of a hard one, just to kind of get my outlines in, and then really just take it from there. You know, it's softer pastel in the layers that come, the subsequent layers that are on top. Yeah.
And when does the blue of the sky come?
That's kind of fun, because that's the negative space around it, so you get to chew away at the shape that you've put in there. And so by going that light turquoise from the bottom and then coming up into that sort of maybe cobalt ultramarine blue, it was really fun to get that gradation going up, because I could decide where I wanted you to look. I could decide where you were going to travel in it.
Well, it is magnificent.
Thank you.
Oh my goodness. Have you gotten inquiries about selling it?
Not yet.
Not yet?
Not yet. I put it on Instagram. And I have it on my website. I have 2 websites. One is for the business, my interior business, and the other one is for the artwork exclusively. I will eventually leave the interior business, but not for a while.
Well, tell me, is this one that you would sell? It seems to me.
Yes.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
I don't paint them to keep them.
You don't?
I don't.
Yeah, but
Some I do. Some are. I did a watercolor years ago. I learned so much. It was on 300-pound watercolor paper, and I messed up the first flower. And so I realized what I had done, and in the upper flower, I corrected it, and my color theory was correct, and I was able to manipulate it. I wanted to go from the edges of shadows are darker than the interior of shadows. So that edge is bluer. Like if you see a tree in a field and it's casting a shadow, look in the wintertime when we have snow. You'll see the edge of the shadow on that white snow will be darker than the interior. And the interior of that shadow will be warmer the closer it is to its object.
oh,
So how do you make a flower glow on paper? In shadow, there is a glow. There's a reflected light that is warmer than a shadow blue. And I realized if I went from yellow, glowing yellow, to a blue edge, what am I going to get? I'm going to get green.
green.
And I did, and it was not pretty. And so I said, well, how can I get there from here? If you add a little bit of a pink, a red, you'll transition kind of through the rainbow, and you'll go yellow to peach to pink to blue. And that's what I did. Thank goodness for that paper, 300-pound paper, because I was able to literally sand it out, the
Really?
first one, after it was bone dry. And I went back in and I fixed it. So I have kept that painting because it taught me so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are significant ones. One was, there was one of pears that had gotten into a Maryland show years ago, and I kept that one too. So
I see.
yeah, there's only a
Well,
few.
do your children say, "Oh, Mom, please keep that. It's so magnificent"?
You know, our kids don't want anything that we do. I shouldn't say that.
Well, you know what? It's true to some extent, but your grandchildren, if you have some,
Yeah,
will.
Chelsea actually has some of my work.
Does she?
And I had a show at my son's house, and so I told him I would only put it up. He's got this huge hallway which acts like a gallery, acts like an art gallery. But in his other rooms, I had taken down pieces, and I promised I wouldn't put any additional holes that his artwork wouldn't cover, except for one. And then I promised, I said, then I will always keep a piece of my artwork here for you. And so there's a piece hanging at his house. Yeah, he's very generous. It was a lovely time, and I will do it again this spring.
And he invites friends?
He invites friends, but I have a mailing list.
Oh.
So I chose, it was a private event. I chose a specific guest list. I sent out invitations because I wasn't sure if the weather would be good, if people would be apprehensive with COVID. I didn't know how many people the house would hold comfortably with people milling around. And still everybody, this was last spring, so everybody was still a little hesitant with COVID and all that. So I had a caterer, and so I'll fine tune it this year. I'll do it a little earlier because some of my clients couldn't come because of college graduations.
Oh, yeah.
So I'll do it in April. So it was fun.
Yeah.
And I'm about to approach galleries. I'm gallery hunting right now.
I was going to ask you that because we've talked about that in the past, and it takes some of the pressure off of you. It probably creates a larger viewing audience, and it just is a win-win.
It is, except that I have to give them a large percentage.
Yes, I know. That's
And
what
it's valid. I mean, they have people to pay, they have expenses, they've got utilities, they have a building, a storefront, a brick front. You know, there's a lot of expense for them. So I understand it. It's just, I've built a company, I have a mailing list. How much of that do I share with them? How much do they share with me? And now that you can do it on Instagram and things like that, it's just trickier today than it was 25 years ago, when you basically gave the gallery everything. And
Right.
they were, some had exclusive contracts where you were everything went to them. I think there's more fluidity in the relationship. At least that's what I'd be looking for.
Yeah.
And maybe it's a subject matter. Maybe they do somebody takes the florals, somebody decides they want only the rocks and water. It's got to be a really good fit personality-wise. You have to be able to communicate with the owner and, have an understanding of what you both want to sell work.
And it's possible that you might find a gallery that only wants the rocks and waters, and you'll keep the rest and market it yourself.
Yeah. So that's yet to be discovered.
You obviously have this magnificent love of expressing yourself in this medium. And tell me, where did it start? Did your mother foster it with her perennial gardens, or where does it come from?
No, my family didn't realize I could even draw until I was 12.
No.
And we were in a 5-week cross-country trip through the national parks that my father and mother graciously put together, my 2 older teenage brother and sister, and the 5 of us headed out west. And I had comic books and we had a lot of things to keep us busy in the car. This was before you had to wear a seatbelt. That's how old I am. And I would copy freehand the comics. And that was the first time I can really remember somebody in my family or anybody saying, "Oh, wow." But my father could draw, and my father could paint.
Oh.
Yeah, so it definitely came. And my mother was very creative. She taught me every kind of, from knitting, not crocheting, but knitting, any stitch work. And I was voracious. Anything that I could do with my hands. I did needlepoint and cross stitch and, you name it. Yeah, through the years. But it wasn't until I was in high school, it was a high school art teacher that said, "Have you ever considered going to school for art?" And I was like, no. And so the next year I put together a portfolio with the help of my high school art teacher, which is why teachers are so important. They see things in people that maybe your family's just too busy with the day-to-day to bother, And so I went to school at SMU. This was before it was UMass Dartmouth.
Oh.
And I went there for art. Yeah.
Wow.
Kind of like
And that was the beginning of a magnificent journey and a fun journey.
Yeah.
Now, in addition to your art, by the way, what's the contact information for the art?
So the art website is AllisonKrajcik.com.
And we're going to put that up at the end, so people listen to the end. You'll see the contact information.
And there's Instagram is on there, so you'll see Alan Picard's the video of him that evening at the show.
Oh, wonderful.
I try to keep that exclusively for artwork, and the other one is TurningPointRedesign.com.
Okay, so TurningPointRedesign.com or Turning Point Redesign. How did that start?
So my cousin, who is like a sister to me, we are 6 months apart. We grew up I just love this woman. She's a professional organizer. She's since gone into life coaching. But she approached me about probably 16, 17 years ago now, and said, what are you up to? Would you consider going into business together or painting together? Because she was interested in maybe doing interiors and things like that. And she'd been working as a professional organizer. So that was born. I was actually gardening at my house and thinking, because we had done some home staging and things like that, and we brought both things together in our expertises, and we just had a blast. And I just love this woman. She's sensitive. It was interesting to talk with clients gently about their situations and to help them organize and to bring the best out of people, and let their home reflect it. And a lot of people are too busy with the day-to-day to really address a room or how they're using their home. And so that's how the business was born. And I was gardening, and we were with a gentleman in Bridgewater, and I said we hadn't named the company yet, and I said it's almost like every situation we go into with clients, it's that they're at a turning point and they have to make decisions. So something's changed in someone's life. They've gotten a new job, they have a new baby, they've moved, they're going to sell their home. All of those points in the journey of someone's life is a turning point, and they're now going in a different direction, and the house needs to change with them, or they're going to sell the house, and it needs to be presented in a way that more people will appeal to more people.
Mm.
So that's how I got going.
Her part of the company was to organize.
Yeah, she really brought the organizing piece. So it really, and then we got into window treatments, because color and window treatments are just hand in hand.
Yeah. Now your job was all about color.
Yeah.
As an artist, and what did that involve?
So, color is a whole animal. It is a chameleon, and I think Sherwin-Williams had a few years ago. They had little chameleons as their characters when on their ads on television. That was spot on, because it is a relative thing. When you put a color into a field of color, it changes it. Lighting is also extremely influential. So it's natural light, the northeast side of the house, the southwest side of the house, as well as interior lighting. And then there's the contrast level of color. So all of these things any painter is dealing with all of these things all the time. But when the homeowner tries to pick a wall color and they're in the northeast side of their home, they don't realize the influence of that northeastern light, which is blue. It is cobalt blue. I was in Cohasset with a woman, and we were in a back stairwell heading up to a master suite. And there was a utility closet off of the stairwell that was just partially closed. And I turned around and I said to her, "Look at that light. It was this color." And it was just this stream of blue, like cobalt blue. That is the quality of the lighting on the northeast side of your home. Mm-hmm. When the sun is in the south, on the southwest, that's what's happening in the northeast side. So I have a chart that I can show that to how that interacts. Mm-hmm. There's also contrast. So if somebody has a medium gray paint and they put it on a white door, mm-hmm. you're going to see it's going to appear a little darker. Uh-huh. If you take that same gray chip, and you put it on a dark door, like a wood door, it's going to seem lighter. It's it's a chameleon. So by the time you get all of these things going, the funny one, the real fun one, if you take a color and you put it in a field of color, like if I put a gray that was, say, had a few green undertones, if I put a gray on this red table, mm-hmm. it would appear even greener, because there's an interchange between the complementary color systems on the color wheel. The good news about all of this is color is really logical. It's just people don't understand the theory behind it. But when you know yellow and green, yellow and purple, orange and blue, and red and green. Mm-hmm. When you start playing with color in a field of color, it will show its complement. And it's not to say, "Oh, don't I look nice?" They're competing for attention. So in fabrics, you'll often see in textiles and clothing, you'll see one of those. Now see, this is a blue and orange complementary palette, but one of them is muted, one of them is browner. The orange is an orange because it would really literally makes the nerve in your eye vibrate. And it's called simultaneous contrast. That's what's going on there. It's that contrast between those colors. It's fascinating.
It certainly is.
It's crazy.
Yeah. My goodness. I'll have to think about this for a while.
Yes.
Because it's a little foreign to our way of looking at things.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're going to take a quick break so that we can change the scene here, so you can show us and illustrate to us what you're talking about.
Fabulous.
Okay?
Yep.
Good. We'll be right back. And so we're back. We're back to talk about Allison Krajcik's business which her art is intertwined with. And so the business is called Turning Point Redesign. And as she explained earlier, she has this business with her cousin, her sister, who is an organizer and now a life coach. We could all use some organization, right? The older we get, the more stuff we have to manage. And
But she left the company in 2015.
oh, she did.
Yeah, well, it started to move into window treatments, and she really wanted to do life coaching. She wanted to really, and that was always her strength, and that was the reason we did so well, because she could really have the heart-to-heart gently with people, and organizing your house isn't that easy. People are emotionally attached to things, and she just has an ease of really, so she wanted more of that.
Well, I imagine she's read the book, The Art of Swedish Death Cleaning.
I don't think so.
By Maria Magnusson, I think. Anyway, I've been practicing that art for the past 2 years, and I just hope I live long enough to finish it. Because it's quite a journey, and you're right. There's a lot of emotion attached to things, but I talk myself into, the right mood to release something.
Yeah.
And part of that message can sometimes be, I haven't worn this in 2 years, and what are the chances that I'm going to wear it again? I've lost weight. It doesn't fit me anymore. That's an easy one. But to say somebody else who needs it can really benefit. So that's going to go to the Lions Thrift Store at the old Grange building on Washington Street next to the Union Villa. That's where that's going.
Yeah.
So those have become easier. Because
And knowing that it's back out in the world and someone else is enjoying it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's so funny because the other day I started looking for a very nubby, woolly turtleneck sweater. I couldn't find it.
You had donated it.
I did. And I remember why, because it was too short on me. And even though it was warm and I just loved it, but I did. So one can make progress if one has the mental stories to tell oneself, So anyway, so she's off on life coaching and you're here with the business. So tell me, when someone calls and says, I want you to come and give me a
Color consultation or
a
something
consultation, what is the first thing you talk about?
First question I ask is it a renovation? I do like to see the home because it gives me indications as to people's style, because that's another whole vein of decorating or pulling out an interior together. But my specialty is it is color. And so it's one of the first things that I do in a color consultation is to look at the orientation of the house. So ask yourself, where does the sun come up? Where does the sun go down? And it's going to give you the orientation. Is the living room on the south side? Is the living room on the north side? And that's key to getting the natural lighting set. And this is a little example, and I have it in a large-scale presentation, but I'll show you how little it takes. These are white. These three are our standard white. And this middle row is meant to be just a general selection of color. Now, maybe you would do some of these for a child's room, but most often you wouldn't. But the neutrals are here at the end. Just to indicate and show you just how little blue there is, that is the actual blue cellophane that I'm using to make my example. And this will blow your mind. So if somebody chooses a yellow for a north room, this is the equivalent of north light. And you'll see, watch when it snows, you'll see blue shadows on snow. If you choose a yellow for a room that's on the north side of your home, this whole row up here is how this color is going to change in the north light. And I'll show you by doing it.
Oh my goodness.
I know, I get to be a magician.
Yes.
So the blues become more intensely blue. The pinks or peaches become a little bit more violet. Yellow and blue make green. So this is going to head toward green, and I have a little story about that. Even your gray, you may have loved this warm taupey gray, but in the north side of the house, at times in those shadowy areas, that's really what it's going to look like. So even the browns will go a little green, depending on the tone. This has a lot of yellow in it, so it's going to pull green. So the same thing happens with the southwest light, only this is your glow, right? Your more warm light. It gets more intensely yellow, gets more intensely orange. So we started here, but look at where we traveled to, depending on, look at the difference between these two, and they are exactly the same. We started with the same color. So, you know, this is why it's so difficult for people. So give yourself a break, right? Go easy on yourself, it's not easy. So let me tell you a little story about the yellow. So there was a gal in Duxbury, and she loved, there's a bakery, a French bakery in the center of Duxbury, and it's this beautiful sort of buttery yellow. And she really loved this color, and she said, I'd really like the exterior of my home to be butter yellow, like this restaurant, this cafe. And the front of her house happened to sit diagonally on a corner lot facing north. And I said, we can get you there, we can get you close, but it will never really look like that bakery, because that bakery faces south. Why do I know that? Because that's just the way I walk through the world, right? I knew that bakery faced south. I knew it was a butter yellow. I had been there before, and it's beautiful. It was never going to be that for her. So what was going to happen, this is a lemon yellow. On the south side, it'll go like that. For her, it was always going to go green. It was always going to be on the north side. So it was always going to go like a bluish green, and she just couldn't deal with that. It just wasn't what she wanted. If you're putting a yellow in a north bedroom and you don't want green, some people are fine with it turning green, but this is where people complain the most. Oh, it's something that it wasn't, you know, I brought this chip home and it's not what I wanted it to be. That's the reason. The lighting alone is one card that you're dealt, one variation. The other thing is this simultaneous contrast, which these two colors at the top, the interior squares, these are the same color. These two are the same color, and these two are the same color.
My goodness.
So when people take a chip, my best advice is to take the chips, go to Fernandes Lumber, go to your paint store, grab the paint chips. Do not, and the thing that blows my mind is the companies have come out with the peel and stick, and you can put them on a wall. People are putting their new wall color on a currently painted wall, guaranteed, and they're never going to really realize what it looks like. When it's edge to edge, top to bottom, against trim, you're never going to see that. If you stick those things, and that's why the paint stores will sometimes tell you, use the sample, put it on a piece of board, and hold it up. Even if you hold it up to the wall, it's still going to change. So you can see the interaction. And the other thing, the other piece of this is the contrast of light and dark, which is the tonal difference. That's also happening here, because this background makes this one look darker. This background not only changes it and pulls the yellow out of it, which makes it greener. See, it's logical, but it's complicated. You have to constantly go back to that root color theory. It's so much fun. It's just, I got the best job in the world. But yeah, so tonal differences make a difference. So if you have wood trim in your home, that is the same gray. Those two strips are the same gray. By putting it on white trim, it looks darker.
Yes.
So the beauty of white trim, you don't have to go very far down the color wheel to get something, to show a color. Wood trim on the other hand, they can be red like this table, they can be yellow, and it's deeper. So getting a color that shows up that doesn't just get washed out is really difficult. That's why painted trim is so much easier to work with. And those are just a few of the, few of the things that I get to do.
Wow. Now, do you bring this?
I don't, because basically I bring the big box of Ben Moore. I bring 2 or 3 color wheels with me that are in the box. I would have brought it, but it's probably weighs about 25 pounds. Somebody said, a real estate agent said, "What have you got in here, a bowling ball?" It's so heavy. But it's, I carry the entire set, so I have all of every color that's in the wheel, and I will be able to pull them out and test them. I often say, only test them, put them up against with painter's tape, stick them on your trim, because that's really what's going to remain in the room. So if you're doing a kitchen, put it on cabinet doors. If you're doing a, any bedroom door, hallway door, your trim is going to remain unless you're going to change it. So oftentimes I'll walk around, we'll choose a white. If they're going to change their trim, we'll choose the white or whatever the trim will be, and I will carry that sample along with any colors that we're trying, because that's really the relationship you're looking for. Yeah.
Fascinating.
It is fascinating, and I fell into it. My cousin said to me, she said, "Why are you not doing this for people?" And that's why we formed the business. It was a blast, and it still is. Not as much fun without her, but you know.
So what's the contact information for Turning Point?
So my phone number, my email, Instagram, all of that is on the Turning Point website, which is turningpointredesign.com. The email is info@turningpointredesign.com. A little lengthy, but it's the same. And you can contact me for both websites have a page referring to the other, because they are intertwined. It's important that the art world see only the art, and the interior can see both.
Right.
But I think it's a more professional presentation to be all art and to have just my name.
And we will have all of the contact information for both her art and her company at the end of this presentation. So when people call you for a consultation, what are most people looking for?
They're looking to pull a project together. I get a lot of calls for tile, bathrooms, kitchens, backsplash. I'll just give Cornerstone a little plug because I love working with them, Cornerstone Tile and Marble. But
that's located in Southeastern?
Yes.
On Route 138?
Yeah, it's off of 138 behind the Dunkin' Donuts in the industrial park. So I'm often referred. I have several bath places that will refer me. Cornerstone refers me. Fernandes Lumber is another great. Their paint desk people are fabulous. Yeah, I like the local scene. I like being connected, but they're really looking to pull that project together. So if you're doing a renovation, walk around with all those heavy bags of samples, because it's all that constant referral of the paint color. The thing is, builders, like if you're building a house, especially in a development, most builders want their paint colors first. And that's one of the last things I go for, because if you think of countertop material being the rarest, there's only so much granite, there's only, in a particular color that you might be interested in, there's only so many choices of quartz or silestone or whatever it is you're going for. That's the most limiting. From there, we can pull a paint color out easily. I can, once I get it in the environment, see where it is. So I go for the rarest material first, then the next rarest, which is usually tile, flooring, and then your paint color. Paint colors, as everybody knows, comes in thousands of choices. It's the easiest thing to put in at the end. My son has a bathroom, a primary bathroom, and picked out all the tile for it. Fantastic. And I thought, well, he had gotten some things on sale, and we kind of tied it all together. And at the end, I thought, well, we'll find a gray that will work here. It'll be fine. There'll be some neutral that will. And he said, no, Mom, I don't like gray. It's like, geez. We did the walls. I think it was called something like a coffee bean black or something like that. It's a warm black, and it is stunning. It's only a little top third of the wall, but it accents all these beautiful trim moldings, and it's stunning. So, sometimes you're pushed in a direction you didn't know you were going to go in. And that's one of my favorite things about color consulting, is, well, I never thought of that. Oh, I never thought of that. Or home staging. I work with several real estate agents, and I love that moment with the homeowner and the real estate agent, and I'll suggest moving a piece of furniture here or there to either, you know, give you the purpose for the space, which can confuse people, or the size, or a focal point piece, and they'll say, I never would have thought of that. And it's just so much fun. It's because it's what they already own, but it's the size and scale of pieces, and some people can't move it in their head and see it. 8 out of 10 people cannot picture things differently. So, yeah.
Right. And people get used to one way of looking at something.
Yeah.
And yeah. Okay. So, what is your advice for people who are, say, moving into a new home, and things look sort of dingy and whatever? What advice do you give them?
So I guess I usually ask for complaints. You know, what is it you're trying to solve? What is it you're unhappy about? And so if you can answer those questions, that gives you a direction on where to begin. Wall color, I love to use it as a supporting actor. In fact, I just worked with a gal out in Pine Hills, and when she showed me her inspiration photos, it was apparent after about the third one. I said, you're going for a gallery look, because all of her walls in all of these photos were white, and the artwork was spectacularly different in every one, and she has quite a collection. So she's going with white walls. She doesn't want to accent her trim. She doesn't want to see that trim molding. So those are the questions, you know, how do you feel about this? What are you going for? What is it? You know, look through Houzz or Pinterest or, you know, real estate sites. What is it that if you can nail down what it is you like about something, that's your direction. And it
Good.
pushes everything else out of the way.
So, do you get many people who want to do redesign? So they're in this house, they've been in this house for 20 years or more, and they're getting a little tired of just looking at the same thing the same way all the time.
Yeah.
and so they want a fresh look.
And it's often dated. It's usually they're tired of usually they go for wall color first. It's a domino. Most of these situations are domino effects. So I often have the conversation about, you know, cost. Where are you, you know, or at least in home staging, it's, you know, how much can we change? Are you on board to do certain areas, especially the public spaces that are really important to people when they're buying a home? But as far as someone wanting to refresh or redesign, some people think they can just do it with a wall color. And you can. Everybody's situation is different, so that's really it's a like super broad question. But most people will try to go for wall color first. It always impacts, you know, window treatments, you know, drapery, bedding. I grew up with a mom that seasonally changed her curtains, and that is not a bad idea, because we get so tired of things so quickly. And it's costly. But if you do, like, for example, a real quick change, and this can be for bedrooms, kids' toy rooms, you know, places that are, you know, maybe not something where you're going to significantly invest money in custom window treatments. But you can do the flat panel drapery with a ring and a clip, and you can, in fact, I'll show you, there's another little trick, how to pleat or make it look like it's pleated. If you have a ring and a clip, if you take a piece of flat fabric, a flat drapery panel, and all you do is you sort of fold it at the top so that you get a couple of pleats. Excuse the noise. Right, so that would be your pleat at the top. Pin it. It will function as if it was a custom drapery. You can change these out color-wise, spring and fall, and it's not a costly thing. It's not something that, you know, oh, I'm not doing. How many people go to Target and Home Goods and switch out their pillows for a breath of fresh air. You know, I mean, you can do it with a drapery panel, and it will transform the room. You know, it's just these little things.
But you have to consider color too.
Yeah, color is huge. That's usually what we're hungry for. You can, and what I love about neutrals, you know, not necessarily just gray. My definition of gray is far wider. It goes from taupe to really slate blue. But any of these sort of neutrals, you can put any color with them and change it out. You know, and it's so. And the other thing, another really fun way to decorate, or give yourself a refresh. Most people are drawn to particular patterns. We connect with those things. I think there's a thread to our tradition, things we've grown up with, color schemes that we've seen that we're comfortable with. People actually have a color palette that they wear. You look at people's wardrobes. People will almost always shop similar colors. But you can take drapery fabric and you can design a room around drapery fabric. Pull the colors out, look at what they really are. Take the drapery fabric to Fernandes Lumber and look at their paint chips and pull that out and start to work with it that way. It's really fun. It's, you know, new approach, new way to take a scarf that you love.
What?
You know, a scarf.
Oh, a scarf.
and look at the, you know, what is it part of the question, whether it's fine art painting or interior decoration, what are you going for? What do you love? Life's too short not to have things that you absolutely love in your world and rooms.
Isn't that the truth?
Oh, it is. It totally is.
Well, Allison Krajcik, you are an extraordinary treasure that lives here in Easton. Many of you probably know her husband a little more. He is the retired police chief, Allison Krajcik. But now you know a lot more about his wife and her many extraordinary talents and how she's incorporating those in making your life better, more colorful, more interesting, and more beautiful. So we thank you, Allison Krajcik.
Thank you so much. This was a blast.
It has. And thanks for watching. We hope that you've enjoyed this program and learned as much as I have. I'm sure that you're going to think about what you put on the walls, what you hang on the curtain rods, and you're also going to think about maybe giving Allison a call. And one consultation could mean all the difference in how your house is beautified and how much you enjoy it. So please look at the information at the end of this broadcast and write it down, put it in your phone, and keep it for future reference. Thank you for watching Community Forum today. Until next time, Priscilla Almquist-Olsen, be well.